I studied last year for that, like to be a meditation teacher, and I sent out emails to every place considerably here in St. Louis I could think of. Not one person ever called me back. Not one. And that made me feel a certain way, not going to lie. But 2 days ago, I had one person that responded to that. And I'm like, it's been a year since I sent that email. And the next minute I started bawling because I am so grateful she did not respond. I am so grateful she did not respond until now, like because I would have went down and never happened. I would never met all these, just my life unfolded because the thing I thought I wanted to happen didn't. And I know you got a story like that too. Like it's just so powerful to realize that no matter what you think is happening, it's happening for your benefit. You just got to hang tight and keep walking. Hello and welcome to another conversation inside 33 Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Michael Abney. And today I'm talking with Scott Kelsey, the founder of Sharepie. It's a platform built around something people are craving in the world right now, to be seen, to be heard, and to be understood. Why we get into the whys behind your reason that you started Sharepie, the ups and downs, and the actual building of the mission-driven company that you share with me in our pre-call, which is amazing. And what's it going to take to keep this going? Like the critical parts that we've all got to manage as we go through this space. Welcome. I appreciate you being here today, Scott, and sharing your story with us. And welcome to the show.
Thanks, Michael, and thanks for the opportunity to share our journey. And I'm so privileged and honored that we were introduced and that you invited me on this podcast. So greatly appreciated.
My pleasure. Let's just kind of dive right in there and tell me what was the moment that made you realize that the world was ready for Sharepie?
Yeah, it's a pretty defining moment in my life. Just about 8 years ago, a little over 8 years ago, I suffered a near fatal traumatic brain injury, fall downstairs in our home here in Princeton, and as part of that, that trauma, I was given a roadmap or a strategy in terms of how to heal from that injury. And while I don't remember a good 2 or 3 months after that fall, I did started to question a lot of things about myself personally. How I had let the speed of life and the obligations and the commitments basically get the better of me. And I'll backtrack 25 years from prior to that, I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. And one of the things when I identified that I needed to do is actually admit that I had these issues and to seek help for them. So as I did, and I was speaking with all my incredible physicians, with a psychiatrist in terms of, like trying to deal with the emotional struggles of that injury in terms of questioning, I just almost lost or left 2 kids and a wife without myself. And as I did that, I started to think about, hey, this is a time for me to really get my stuff together, right? And through that, I was introduced to a few people that had gone through similar circumstances, and just the power in terms of sitting down with them and conversing with them about what they had gone through really was, I didn't call it therapeutic at the time, but it really was, it put me at a little bit more ease. And I plugged into a couple of peer support programs, and I just realized that, we're not alone, and there are people that go through similar, and there are people out there that are, willing and able to share it. And that's where the initial thought of why isn't this, peer support, and why can't we, positively use technology to create a space where people can turn to when they need support, when they're going through rough times, when they're questioning themselves. And that was the initial thought of, hey, I really want to make this more available.
So I'm always fascinated by the problem, solution, connection. And so the problems that you suffered, like the brain injury, actually caused you to have a moment where you had to stop and rethink everything, right? So what was that like from a male perspective of like what you're taught about who you're supposed to be in the world and doing all the things right and everything, like how that engine crashed And like, what were the pieces from your past that you brought to what you're doing right now? Because I know it wasn't by accident that you just came up with this idea. There had to be some sort of thread that you pulled out of the past and brought it into now to make this real for everybody.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, at the time, we're taught, a lot of us, especially males, athletes, not to be vulnerable, not to admit weakness, right? I was scared.
Yeah.
I don't know if I told people that, but I was scared, right? I had just almost, so I suffered a very bad injury, and I had a lot of things going on that I didn't know what, the next chapter of my life looked like, right? But as I thought about it, and I started engaging with others, clinically, physicians, in terms of this roadmap that I needed to just get better, and I had the time to do so, fortunately. I started to think about, like, when you mentioned what were the threads that kind of came through or what I pulled through, is that I've always been a
Yeah.
curious person, and try to be curious, compassionate, whether it was friends, family, and that translated very well for me in my professional life, right? Like, I had teams when I was younger. I was fortunate enough to go play hockey after college with teams. So I had an environment where there was trust, there was, that relatability in terms of grinding through professional sports with others. And then in the workforce, I think I brought that to the workforce when I started my career in '98. And while I went about my early career and the sales business a little bit different than others, I really look back and said, hey, my success was over the previous 20 plus years was built on strong interpersonal relationships. And while I wasn't as open and honest with all those people in terms of stuff I was dealing with, I always cared. And I always cared more about the numbers, and more about the person. And I think that's, something that I've pulled through. And I don't take lightly. Like, I sincerely want to know, how people are doing. And it's not just a quick question, how you doing, Michael? And move on with the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Right? I think, I've learned much, much more to be a much more effective listener. And I've grown in compassion, empathy, all those things that I think make me just a much better human being.
I love that. You said something about the curiosity. So when I'm coaching people, that's the antidote to like a defensiveness. It's like somebody will be in our world and there's something about them that sort of triggers something inside of us. And that's the pivot point, is take whatever that is and just put some curiosity into how you're looking at it and just see what happens, as a way to lean into not having it be a conflict. So I'm curious about, since you have that installed and like you operate from that, has that helped you through this process? Because I know there's like a million times where you just want to throw it up and quit. Like, has the curiosity helped you, or have you, other aspects of the Sherpy journey that have helped you personally keep this going? Because, it's building something is one of the hardest things in the world to do. And here you are doing it and keep showing up every day. So how does that tie in, like that spirit of being curious?
That's a good question. I think, like, I can think of one thing, multiple, but one thing I'll touch on is, early on in the journey, it was, hey, you have this idea, you throw it out to a bunch of friends, you get them involved, we do some betas, get some feedback, and it was probably at that time thinking, well, they're close friends. Are they giving me true, honest feedback? Or are they just like saying, hey, this is good? But as we've grown, and over the last few years, and as new people have come on to our platform and experienced what we're offering, people that I probably might have never met in my life, just having conversations with them. And it's easier to do now than hopefully it will be, when we have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of members. But I really tried to do my best to reach out and say, how'd you hear about us? Why'd you join? And just listen. And it's amazing to hear people's stories. It's amazing just to understand. And like I had said, I understand much better now how to ask questions that don't seem probing, so to speak, but just, kind of set the space where people, will share more openly. And that curiosity, every time somebody new joins, I get excited, and say like, where'd this person come from? Where did it come from our, some of the marketing we do? Did it come from another member? But I try my best to reach out to everybody and just say, I know you're going to be joining us on a get together soon, and I'd love to hear your story, but I appreciate you getting involved, and tell me a little bit more about, why you felt this might be a good thing for you to join.
Yeah. You're giving me the feeling of that your caring and your compassion are like actually showing through your company. So it just harkens back to this time where I like started my business, first physical business, in the mid 90s, and how important that was to have a connection with the people that you were doing. I own a hair salon, so it was that interpersonal. You were touching people, but yet you still had to go that extra mile to send cards and thank yous and referral programs. You had to be talking about all of these things that is a missing for me when I look at like how online businesses are, or, no matter if you have a physical business or not, it's still part of it is online, and you're dealing with, and that bridge of now doing my own online and in life too, I finding the overlap sometimes can be fun and unexpected for people. So do you have instances where you're getting feedback about who you're being inside your company when they start interacting with you? That's different than the normal, because we all get listenings and automatic ways of thinking about certain things. Like when we're solicited for something, it's like, oh God, somebody's trying to sell me something, right? Instead of like, our heart mission is like, no, I'm trying to share something with you. If it's a fit, it's a fit. So how does your heart energy play into the business that you're building?
I think for the most part, I would like to say it plays into it all the time, right? Outside of the confusion and the, at times some self-doubt about like, is this really what I believe it can be, and help the amount of people that I believe we can help. Going back to that, I don't think you use the term validation, but it's very heartwarming. And when I'm on our get-togethers, and we've got a handful of them that meet weekly now, I love being able to number one, sit back and just watch the process and see kind of what we built be effective. Sometimes I try to do my best to try to take my founder, owner, CEO hat off, right? And not be like an infomercial while we're in the actual get together. But as it relates to your question, I'm blessed, honored, taken back at when individuals who I never met before, who have been on a few of our get togethers, or I've had an outside of our get togethers conversation, give some pretty strong feedback to others on the call or Zoom, right? Where they say, hey, I've been able to learn a little bit more about Scott, not only by joining these, but also, connecting with him outside of these rooms. It's very heartwarming. I'm so appreciative, and I hope that experience just keeps happening, for the benefit of our members.
Have you heard moments where like you didn't know how you're going to take a next step?
Plenty of them. Plenty.
What did you do? Like, what does that call forth in you?
I think maybe the resilience and the belief that there is something here, right? And while it might not right now be, thousands and thousands of people experiencing what we're doing, that what we've built now, we're changing people's lives and we're helping people. While I truly believe that this platform and has the ability to help many, many more people, that's what keeps me going, right? And the people that are actively engaged, are actively showing up, I need to keep the lights on, right? We need to keep this thing going. It's incredible to project, hey, this could be this, in a year from now, 6 months from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now. Just keep myself in the moment being like, I need to sometimes summon the strength, get my own thoughts out of the way and show up, and it's evidence of this morning. I had a pretty hectic night last night, got some good sleep, and I was thinking, hey, What if I didn't show up? And I know it would have been fine, but I needed it. I think it's the resilience, the determination that this is from my heart. This is something that is just not out there to, make me rich or famous in any means. It's really about leveraging my shared experience and giving other people, the ability and the platform to do so to help each other out.
Like, life's a mirror. I'll just assert that. So what has the mirror of Sherapy shown you about yourself that you never knew before? Like, what did you build? What the thing that you built, what's it reflecting back to you that you never saw in yourself before?
I've never given my, I think naturally I thought just relationships happen because I was, kind, curious. I listened to people. I think it's gotten better, like I had said over the years. I don't give myself enough credit, but at times I catch myself, whether it's in the mirror, just thinking like, wow, that person, I met them for 10 minutes and they felt so comfortable to share. And people have told me this. I've never shared this with anybody in my life. When people that I met 15 minutes before that, and they're asking permission to share it. Sometimes I get taken back, like, wow, like, do I have a little, pastoral, collar on? Like, how do these people that otherwise were strangers, feel comfort? So I'm never going to take that for granted. I'll always work on it. But I think at times I feel like it's not, maybe it's more innate in terms of being caring, being honest, being vulnerable now. That just lends itself to what we're doing, right? Creating that space and having the ability for people to feel comfortable to share.
That's the mirror. Like, also how the mirror works is that whoever was sharing that with was mirroring you. That was coming back for you. It's like everything is a loop. So I just find that so fascinating about hearing that from somebody else that's using what you built has to feel incredible.
Yeah, I'll go back, and my first thought on the answer to that in the mirror was I've never considered myself a tough guy, right? Like, I played a physical sport. I've gotten through some adversities in my life. My first thought when you said mirror was, you're not as tough as you think you are. In terms of, like, and I think we'll get into it, some of the ups and downs and battles and, mind games you play with yourself when you're an entrepreneur and building things.
Yeah. It's the perfect time to bridge to that. Like, that's the part that is my attention for this entire pod series is I just know all the times that I suffered, it stopped me. It, just the lack of connection, the lack of being seen, having that feedback mechanism as you're building something that you believe in so passionately. It gets deep and you get connected to it. It's how it happens. But at the same time, you have to release it back out to the world and connect it to whoever it's going to serve. Hopefully, we're at a point now where both of us are pretty clear on what that is. But like, before I had that clarity, oh my God, I could just, it was like a freight train coming at me. Like, how long can I keep this going? Like, I don't have anything, there's just this, it totally connects. And it wasn't until I was seen and heard by somebody that I knew what they were doing. That's when it clicked. And that's when everything shifted. So now that's why the podcast is here, is like sharing those moments with folks. So when they're in it and they hear this, they go, oh, this is just part of the ride. And now I fall in love with all of the quirky stuff about it because I don't want to resist it anymore. What were those things for you that when they happened, were devastating, but at the same time, now you can look at it like, I'll give you a really quick example because it's so freaking powerful. When I first started this, I thought I was going to be a meditation teacher. I studied last year for that, to be a meditation teacher. And I sent out emails to every place considerably here in St. Louis I could think of. Not one person ever called me back. Not one. And that made me feel a certain way, not going to lie. But 2 days ago, I had one person that responded to that. And I'm like, it's been a year since I sent that email. And the next minute I started bawling because I am so grateful she did not respond. I am so grateful she did not respond until now, like because I would have went down and never happened. I would have never met all these, just my life unfolded because the thing I thought I wanted to happen didn't. And I know you got a story like that too. Like it's just so powerful to realize that no matter what you think is happening, it's happening for your benefit. You just got to hang tight and keep walking.
Yeah.
What, I know you got a big one like that too, isn't there?
No. Yeah, I think there's been several. I knew getting into, getting into something new and getting into this venture, while I jumped kind of into it, I don't want to say blindly, but I never thought it would just be, hey, it's needed out there. You've got a lot of friends and connections that have money that, want to support you. You can make this thing work, right? Like, what I found is that journey has been incredibly, and I speak with other founders on this and people like yourself and you mentioned the sending out X amount of emails and not getting a response. I can relate to that a lot, right? And yeah, there's been hundreds, if not thousands, of emails sent out, both for, hey, join and support us. Would you partner with us? Would you look to invest in us? And sometimes, I play the numbers game in my head being like, hey, if I send out X amount, I'm going to get Y, and that's going to great. It's going to fuel. And then you get those crickets. And then you get did I send it out wrong? Am I sending it too often? And then I start questioning myself, do I have to send out 10,000? Am I asking the wrong questions? Am I talking to the wrong people? Right? That's beat me up more than anything over the last year. Right? But I can tell you one thing, we're still operational. We're still functioning. I'm still here talking to you on this podcast. Where, like you had mentioned before, I think it's not too uncommon for people to be like, hey, let's throw in the towel, right? This isn't there. So there's, I think, yeah, we've had investors that have, unfortunately, passed away that we're going to invest. And I, thought that, wow, that's a big hit financially, personally as well, losing friends and such. But, that was almost a year ago, right? Where at that time we had great, some great investments coming in, some traction there where it wasn't like, nothing too crazy or too, not huge investments, but it was keeping gas in the tank to keep things going. And moments like that, you're like, wow, we finally somebody that believed in us that was willing to write a pretty good sized check to support us, and it doesn't come through. Again, and it wasn't like we were going to stop sending those out, right? You need to keep filling the tank, right? To scale, to grow, to support what you built. But there are times where it's like, wow. And I'm glad, I just didn't say, hey, this is not going to work, 11 months ago, because there's such good growth the last 11 months and so many great people coming on board that I'm so glad, just like you're glad that person didn't respond. I'm so glad I didn't just say, enough's enough. Let's just shut this thing down.
Yeah. I'm glad you didn't either. I'm glad I didn't either. Because I'm at a point where I don't know how it's going to all go down, but I know it's going down. And I keep getting evidence of all the pieces. Just had some major happen this week that I've never dreamed possible. So it's like 3 more things could happen like that next week. We don't know. It's just our job to stay clear, present, and in the now, because that's the only place where that's going to happen is in the now. So what are you working on right now in your now? What's the next big leap for you as we're all looking at the holidays coming? It does kind of slow us down for a little bit, but at the beginning of the year, what are you excited about?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a pretty good push with some new people that have come on board to help out. Let's call it a sprint, right? Understanding that the next 4 to 6, 8 weeks are tough, right? You don't want to be seem too pushy. You want to respect people's time with their families and such. But we've been on a pretty good sprint lately to implement a few new things with Sherapy where people can, outside of the website and emails or word of mouth, they can really kind of get a sneak peek in terms of, behind the curtains, I like to say, of what we're doing. And that's been, incredibly well done. And, that's a way that lets people know a little bit more about what we're doing. And, we're going to keep hosting those, right? We'll obviously respect people's time. And if less people show up on Thanksgiving morning, that's fine. We want to create the space. If people want to show up, they can. But it's really that coupled with, increasing engagement of our members already. And we're working on some things there. And that all helps by bringing on people that love our mission and vision and have the capacity to, spend time doing that. And then it's, ABR always be raising, right? Like we need gas, right? we need exactly. Gas in the tank, and I think we're in a really good position. It doesn't need to go from 0 to 60, right? But I think we're in a really good position to scale. But and I think there's enough behind it, the people involved and the infrastructure and stuff we put out. Yeah, it all costs money. Right. And, we need money to support it, but also to really, rev it up a little bit in terms of, marketing, in terms of partnerships, to really get to that next level of growth.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on today and sharing your story about Share-a-P. Sharing is so important, and the humanness and the peer-to-peer there's just not a space for it in our world. And that's the thing that I discovered earlier this year. And I know, too, is like creating those spaces just don't happen. There's not some outside entity going to figure all of this stuff out for us. And we'll happen to luck into it. It's coming through all of us. So I appreciate you sharing your story, but I have one last question for you. If somebody's listening to this and they're in that dark moment where they don't know how they're going to put one foot in front of the other, what do you have to share with them?
Usually people have a few people, a handful of people. Sometimes they don't, that they can confide and trust in. I think it's. I don't want to use the term courage, but I think it's just a more direct, just reaching out, right? Reaching out to somebody you know and trust. Even if it feels uncomfortable at a time. I mean, I can share with my experience. I've had to ask people for things I never thought of I would ever have asked, and I push it off, and it does no good to push it off. And I pushed off asking for help for far too long. So, how much, whatever's weighing on you, like there are people out there that will help, right? And it's summoning kind of that inner, whatever you want to call it, for the ability to do it. But I know if there's a problem and, to be proactive on it, just try to be proactive on it, no matter what it is, because there are people out there that share similar experiences or have the time and will actually sit and listen.
And too, just a little bit about the military aspect of what you're doing as well. That struck me. What is your connection there, and why is that part of your Share-a-P ecosystem?
Yeah, no. So great question. And my family goes way back, like grandfathers, uncles. All served in the military. My father served in Vietnam. My brother, served 26 years in the Special Forces and in the Army. And as we were, looking at early on in terms of, our thoughts are this: like we all need human connection. Community's big, but that could be a big kind of community in of itself, right? Which we have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And where can we find touch points and lean on one another and get support and some guidance from others is with life stage transitions, right? Whether it's, loss of a job, loss of a spouse, divorce, but two big transitions that I have, I've seen people come out of the military and friends, family kind of not have or feel like they don't have like the best off ramp, right? And where can we support there? And then with my own journey in athletics, I know I've had friends who have gotten in some really tough spots because they didn't transition well. So early on, it was through my experience in sports itself for the athletes in terms of our athlete community, and then knowing some struggles that people have gone through, and then seeing what was out there for the military and where I felt we could be an additional resource to what was already out there to help people not only through the transition, but make them part of a community where they felt like they're being seen, heard, and understood. So,
yeah, that's universal. That's so universal and so needed. And thanks for stepping up to the plate and creating that space, because it is a huge transition.
thanks, Michael.
I appreciate it. You bet. Thank you so much, Scott, for sharing your mission and the story behind it with our listeners today. Thanks for everybody for listening in. And if you want to be a part of that conversation, you're at Sherapy.com, right? Sherapy.com. And I'll put the link down below for everybody. And if you're a founder looking to have those conversations, I do that at 33strangers.com. So I love that we have that synergy and that connection, that we're both like putting that into the space, because it's what I'm lit up about and carry me through every step that I'm taking. I appreciate you sharing your journey with our listeners today too.
Thanks, Mike, and I appreciate, again, you having me on here to do so.
My pleasure. So you guys stay present, stay in the now, and we'll see you on the next conversation.